Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hello.
Morning.
It's the 11th of December, 2025. That reminds me, it would have been my father-in-law's birthday today. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Uh,
Happy birthday.
and please put in the chat where you're watching us from today. I am in Central Florida. Dr. Kiltz is up in Syracuse, I think.
Snow country.
I love that.
Love the snow.
And alias near the equator. And Moira, where are you coming from today?
So I'm coming from the west coast of Scotland, near the mountains and the sea lochs.
All right.
Love that.
Hopefully one day I will be able to visit Scotland. So put in the chat hashtag KMT for what are we giving away today, Alia?
I said a baseball cap in the chat. Hashtag KMT for a baseball cap. Everyone's going to get full uniforms as a Kiltz Mighty Tribe ambassador.
All right. Are we working on new shirts with?
Yeah, we are. That was brought up. Oh no, we should have Kiltz Mighty Tribe ambassador shirts. That's a great idea. Yes.
All right. So today our guest is Moira. How do you pronounce your last name? I apologize for that.
It's Newiss, Moira Newiss.
Okay. All right. And she's an expert in the field of metabolic psychiatry. She's done some work with brain energy and long COVID. And before you introduce yourself, Dr. Kiltz, you have any comments today?
Another beautiful day in the universe. I'm so grateful to everyone being here. Moira, thank you for helping us share the message of health for all humans and bringing metabolic ideas and to the mindset. And Ali and Dr. Nelson, good morning.
Good morning. So, Moira, if you could, go ahead and tell us about who you are, how you got here, your own story of healing, which I believe you have something with that as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So my journey started a long time ago now. I was a senior manager in the NHS, the health service in the UK, for 20 years. I worked in acute hospital, primary care services, community services. So over that time, I gradually got more and more stressed until my body really didn't cope with it so well. And I ended up with chronic fatigue and 4 different mental health diagnoses. I was really at one point struggling to even get off the sofa, struggling to walk down the road, very severe brain fog, depersonalization, anxiety, low mood. And I kind of struggled on thinking maybe it was more to do with energy to start with. I didn't really appreciate that time that mental health and physical energy are kind of related in many ways. I carried on and eventually realized I was going to have to change my job. That was part of my kind of awakening, that maybe the job wasn't suiting me so well any longer, even though I actually loved it, but it was very stressful. So I decided to make some changes. Along the way, I had seen my GP a few times. All my tests came back normal. I got offered antidepressants, didn't really want to take them, thought there might be some other way of coping, making things better. I did see a psychiatrist once who actually sat me down and taught me how to do deep breathing. And that was probably the start at which I thought, okay, maybe lifestyle is going to have something to do with recovery. And so over the next few years, I dabbled in, lots of different things, really, stress management techniques, but also changed my diet. And I had been surviving a lot on caffeine and sweet foods, chocolate in particular, chocolate cake. I would even leave board meetings to go and get my fix of chocolate and caffeine with nobody knowing, come back to keep myself going. So I went low carb initially, and then I decided to retrain. I got very interested in nutrition, decided to retrain as a nutritional therapist. And in my very first 2 months of training, there was something about mitochondria in the syllabus. And I got really interested in mitochondria, discovered the ketogenic diet and its effects on mitochondria, decided to do a full keto diet myself for several months. And that culminated at the end of 3 months in me completing a 100-kilometer bike ride event, something I would never have been able to do, like, you know, a while before that. And I remember coming to the finishing line and I was crying tears of joy because I knew at that point that I had completely sorted my energy problems out. And while my physical energy improved, my mental energy improved too. And all my mental health conditions also went into remission. So that's kind of how I got into the world of nutrition and complete my training, 3 years of training to be a nutritional therapist and a health coach. I have dabbled in carnivore myself as well, partly because a couple of years into being keto, I discovered that after a viral illness I had, that my thyroid was a little bit struggling a little bit. And so I decided I would try, keto wasn't really sorting it. So I decided I would try a carnivore diet. And amazingly, to me at that point in time, within a few weeks, my thyroid was completely back to normal. So I continue to I cycle on and off the carnivore diet, using it to make sure that I keep my thyroid in the right place. I do have an autoimmune thyroid condition. And I am not strictly carnivore, but I'm very animal-based myself. And I now work with clients using similar approaches, particularly in the field of chronic fatigue and mental illness now, to help them reboot the brain energy and, you know, get their lives back on track again. So that's a bit about me.
Very good.
I would like to
Go ahead,
ask you this
Alia.
question. What type of doctors are you all? Is someone watching, a new person watching from?
Well, I'm a
Speed?
OBGYN and a fertility doctor. Dr. Nelson?
I'm a family physician and metabolic health practitioner.
There you go.
Moira, what's your
Yeah, so I'm not a doctor. I'm a bank registered nutritional therapist in the UK. That is the professional body for nutritional therapists. And I'm also a qualified health coach as well under the UK IHCA, which is the UK and International Health Coach Association.
Alia?
I am a doctor of StreamYard.
It's an interesting thing where we get our labels from, and somehow we make these labels have meaning. But Moira, did your standard training as a nutritionist teach you about carnivore and keto as a therapeutic modality to heal people who are sick mentally?
No, but I can please to tell you that I lectured at the national conference this year on carnivore diets to my profession. So they are now beginning to get that training coming through. And it is well accepted. In fact, the dean of the school I worked at is very proactive in looking at keto and carnivore. And I know that there is definitely a strong interest growing in the profession. Many people experimenting on themselves with things, It's interesting in my profession, you quite often, on several group chats, and you quite often hear of people who themselves still can't resolve their health problems. And I'm thinking, when they haven't tried keto, they haven't tried carnivore, so they're really only dabbling in the edge of metabolic health, I feel. And they're not maybe, really diving in deep.
Is it possible it's simply we're poisoned by plants?
Yes, I do believe that. And I think that even personally, the thyroid issue might have been me eating too many nuts and things like that was affecting the absorption of minerals on my keto diet, and that didn't have a lot of plants in it.
What do you know about keto? What do you know about goitrogenic foods?
Well, yeah,
Well, so goitrogens are known thyroid damaging substances.
Yeah.
That's simple. And so, what if they're all tumorgenic? They damage every every organ system and cellular structure of our body, not just the thyroid gland.
Yeah, I think there's several different plant compounds out there that can have systemic effects. It's not just goitrogens, there's lots of others too. And I think that some people are just more sensitive to these effects than other people are, so whereas some people might thrive with some of those foods in the diet, other people, it just doesn't suit them, is my personal view on this.
Could cancer be an allergic reaction?
Well, I do believe cancer is a lifestyle issue, and a lot of it is to do with food. So
allergy. So I'm thinking of our sort of simple description of allergies. And an allergy or an inflammatory reaction is redness, swelling, pain, heat, dysfunction, damage to the cellular structures, the cell, damage to the organ that those cells are critical for, and then death, dysfunction and death of the organism. I don't know what's happening in England, but is the healthcare cost going up or down?
It's going up. It's going up, and it is, it'll be the same as in the US, that we're very good at treating acute, coronary problems, but we're very poor at addressing, the root cause and prevention and reversal of chronic disease too. Yeah. And I mean, I know you had on Louise Benning recently. He's a public health collaboration ambassador in the UK. I actually also involved with that charity because I'm very much a believer in supporting, the message that real food is part of the answer here. And I sit on the scientific committee for that charity. And our message is clearly that, the starting point needs to be real food for all chronic disease.
It's all disease. I mean, you name it, it's what we breathe, drink, and eat. Because even a carnivore can get any illness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've even been at ketogenic, professional events where people are consuming a lot of alcohol, for example. And I'm thinking, so you might be eating well, but you're putting a lot of toxins into your body. That's not a good thing generally. So I believe it's a holistic approach. It's not, personally, I believe that if you're, for optimal health, you've got to be exercising regularly. Personally, I lift weights twice a week. I very much encourage my clients to be thinking about circadian rhythm, light exposure, as well as the food aspect.
So how does a ketogenic or carnivore diet physically changes brain energy metabolism?
Great question. So in a few different ways. Firstly, I'm assuming that anyone carnivore is really also probably keto as well in terms of producing ketones. So the ketogenic effect on the body and on the cells is really at several levels. One is at the mitochondrial level. So mitochondria, prefer in many ways to burn ketones as a fuel. It's cleaner, it gets around, it uses less oxygen, and it also gets around the problems of things like insulin resistance where the brain can't access glucose effectively. It's also anti-inflammatory in a variety of different ways. So all those things kind of support, the improvement of brain energy just generally. And there are quite a number of studies coming out now showing that ketogenic diets in particular are, being used in even randomized control trials now for depression, for bipolar, etc. And we're getting really promising results.
Someone is asking about creatine for brain health.
Yep, there are some good studies, and it is increasingly being used as a supplement for energy, supporting energy and ATP production. So many people might be familiar with it being used for, in terms of muscle training, but actually we know that it has an effect in the brain as well. So it is something that you could think about using if you want to use supplements.
I always go back. Well, I question all of our science. I think it's massively wrong, even in the keto carnivore world. alcohol is harmful for us. Agree?
Agreed.
And alcohol is made by microbes, yeast and bacteria, fermenting amino acids from proteins and simple sugars, mostly from plants. Is it possible that our simple damage is secondary to auto brewery syndrome because we're making small amounts of alcohol every day between the lips and the anus, which are damaging our brain, and it has nothing to do with ATP energy. It has to do with we're poisoned by plants and alcohol.
But there's definitely a good argument for that as well. So one of the problems I commonly see is, I'm sure you do too, symptoms of, that the gut isn't happy with bloating, pain, whatever. And I think my personal view is that is probably to do with fermentation at the wrong point in the gut and too much fermentation going on of plant foods, in the upper intestines, with lots of knock-on effects, in terms of things like stomach acid production, enzyme production, and that will all feed in because, we're really complicated organisms. So if one thing goes wrong somewhere, there will be a signaling process in there that will link back to the brain, whether it's through the nervous system or hormones or, proteins. It's complicated, but all those organs talk to each other. So if the gut's not happy, the brain is going to know about it quickly because there's a lot of feedback from the gut to the brain.
Although, isn't it probably simpler than we say? Because science makes everything very complicated. And ultimately, are 3 meals a day from day one to day you're done, a healthy lifestyle?
That is just a pattern we've got into in modern society. In fact, most people are eating more often than that, aren't they? Even waking up at night sometimes to eat and things. So, yeah, I believe, I'm a big believer in finding what suits you for your health. And that could be eating 3 times a day, but it could be eating once a day. It could be having periods of fasting that, go on for longer. Personally, I usually eat about 2 times a day. So I just find that suits me best. I do find some clients who want to do 1 meal a day struggle to eat enough sometimes. So that's sometimes a little bit of an issue, but I know it's quite popular in the carnivore world to do 1 meal a day.
Yeah, I've been doing 1 meal a day forever, and going 3 days no food once a month, 5 days quarterly. Dr. Nelson did 22, and I did 15 days. Was it July or August of this year? And felt amazing. I imagine 50,000 years ago, the herd has moved on, and we've got to walk to get there and find him, right?
Absolutely.
And as we're walking to find the herd and capture, kill, call, whatever it is, we're eating the grass as we're going.
No, I don't believe that. I believe that. My personal view is we would have mainly been eating fatty meat. That's my personal view. I do think, just like a bear will sometimes eat other things like berries, we might have eaten berries. My native blaeberries here in Scotland are quite tasty. I quite like them when they're in season. So I don't know I don't believe we probably never would have eaten that, but there is some evidence that people would have eaten nuts. But interestingly, the evidence of eating nuts does come with evidence of tooth decay as well. So where they found so impacts on the body.
So probably from day one, when we came out of the trees, we were eating the grass eaters, but then we would eat likely some of the fruiting. I mean, a seed is still a fruit in essence in most cases. There likely was some harm, but starvation was the worst harm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just like you say, going to chase those animals who weren't, were moving on each day, we would have had to be in ketosis because we just wouldn't have had the energy to go and do that hunting.
Okay, so what if glucose is a glycosylating agent and has nothing to do with energy directly?
Just explain that a little bit more.
Well, so we have used glucose as the primary energy source and fat is the secondary energy source.
Yeah.
But what if fat is the only energy source?
Yeah.
And glucose and other sugars in the human body, because there are 9 sugars in the human body: glucose, galactose, mannose, fucose, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylgalactosamine, a couple of others. But every cell, the DNA tells the RNA to make a protein.
Mm-hmm.
And the proteins are being made at the speed of light. All proteins go through a post-translational modification, meaning that something is added to the protein to give it its proper shape, charge, pH, solubility in water or fat, and function, essentially. Glucose is just another glycosylating agent versus glycation. So glycation is the abnormal binding and damage that sugars do to cells. And we measure that in hemoglobin A1C. And so we eat food, and it's digested, and it's broken down to amino acids, simple sugars, and fatty acids. Fat goes to the lymphatics, and it's distributed everywhere in the body via chylomicrons from the gut.
Mm-hmm.
Amino acids and sugars both must go to the liver. Insulin goes up and converts both of those things in the liver to fat.
Yep.
Basically, it's making an adipocyte as a VLDL to ship it around the globe. Now, if you don't eat for a week and your gut is empty of all food, what's your glucose level?
It's just the basic level that it requires for a very few cells in the body that have to use glucose as a fuel.
But it's not used for fuel; it's used for glycosylation.
Well, what about red blood cells?
They don't use. They have ATP stored from the day they're made to the day they die. They don't have mitochondria.
No, exactly. That's why.
They don't use. So when you say used for fuel, they don't have mitochondria. They can't make ATP because basically a red cell is a structural component that over time diminishes in function. It's cleaned up by the spleen.
So why do I love that, and I will look into that. It's fascinating. So why do you think that if you think that there are cells that don't need glucose, okay, why do you think that the liver appears to make glucose as, to retain this basal glucose level?
Because the liver also makes amino acids and proteins.
Yep.
It makes, but it also, what's the most important thing the liver makes? What's the number one liver disease? What's the number one liver disease?
Oh, yeah. Well, fat. Yeah.
Fatty liver.
Yeah.
So what's the number one function of the liver to make?
Yeah.
Fat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, here it's simple. What's the standard diet for all of us humans? Fruit, fiber, vegetables, seeds, nuts, salad, chicken, fish, turkey, lean meat. What's our diet missing? Fat. Now, bears become hyperphagic in the spring, late the summer and fall. Why do they get hyperphagic and must get fat? Because they will not survive without fat. If there's a famine and you're not fat, how long do you survive?
But I think that's probably the same in humans, that we would have had to fatten up for winter because we would have had to survive for at
100%,
least
100%.
9 months, maybe 9 months even, with only fat.
Well, 100%. And so the process of getting fat is not pathologic, it's physiologic, it's normal.
Yeah.
Insulin's not defective. Insulin's job is to convert amino acids and sugars to fat. Now, when we say glucose is your first energy, in general, we're telling people to get your glucose down, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't believe it's the first energy source. I think ketones are the preferred energy source in the body.
Well, ketones are beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, acetone, which all come from acetyl-CoA, which comes from fat. And so, again, I question their complicated science. If we simplify it, Obesity does not cause disease, and eating fat does not cause disease. The plants and the protein, low-fat diet is our number one killer.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's fascinating what you can do. I climb mountains. So for people who think that, obviously you have to adapt to your fat diet to get full, performance, I believe. I don't think if you went out, if you were eating a high carb diet, right, and tomorrow you tried to climb a mountain, you might struggle. Your energy levels are not going to be as ideal because you're just not, the body's not quite converted its metabolism.
But your problem is not ATP. Your problem is your red blood cells are damaged. And so your oxygen carrying capacity is low. And your muscle, you have to train to strengthen and build your oxygen carrying capacity. And so the other problem is withdrawal. So how many people are addicted to coffee and tea and alcohol? Yeah. And so we're only withdrawing from our addiction, and our addictions are powerful because in general, you didn't have those products. You just had the plants, which were sweet and sugary because it got you fat before the winter.
Yeah, I totally agree with that point of view. And the only point I was trying to make is that I climb mountains, and people struggle to believe you can, survive on fat, but actually you can't just survive, you can thrive on it. It makes life so much easier because you don't have to eat half as often when you're out and about. If you're surviving on fat as a fuel, you can climb 2 mountains and feel amazing at the top. And okay, I might eat then, but actually you don't even have to potentially. So
but the simplicity is glucose is not our energy.
No.
It's a glycosylating agent because most people don't know anything about glycobiology. This is one of the most amazing sciences, but fat is always the fuel. Because if you're an anorexic, how long do you live?
Well, it's got the worst mortality rate in any mental illness.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Is it possible the plant drugs are damaging the brain and making us psychotic, schizophrenic, depressed, and we can't even think or see straight?
There's definitely some evidence that plant compounds can contribute to that. Absolutely. And I do think that I've seen with clients that sometimes, when they've tried going keto already and they've still got problems, if they go carnivore, it's just that another step up, and it's just removing more of those. All the only difference is you're taking the plants out because you're still using fat as a fuel.
Well, fat is always the fuel. That's where I want us all to get to. I mean, Dr. Nelson did his normal activities for 22 days and didn't eat a thing. I did 15 days. I climbed mountains. I flew airplanes. I operated on people. I went to work every day. Food, we need far less. Every time we tell people we're not eating enough food. But I'm curious about your experience in people that have had anorexia or mental brain dysfunction and moving them onto a carnivore diet versus a keto diet.
Yeah. So I haven't dealt with anyone with anorexia. So just say that first of all. So I deal with people with schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, anxiety, various other conditions. So I can tell you, I've got a case study I'm hoping to publish this year, which is actually about severe anxiety. So it's an interesting one because the lady came to me and she'd already done a bit of experimentation herself. She had gone low carb already, and she did feel a little bit better, but it wasn't really shifting things enough. So she when I looked at her diet out, I would have think she was probably already in ketosis, which she wasn't measuring, but it looks pretty much like a ketogenic diet to me. But because she was still having a lot of severe problems, it wasn't just mental illness, it was severe anxiety. She previously struggled with binge eating. She also had severe reflux, vasomotor symptoms, quite severe, all the situations severe. And she went on to carnivore, and almost really within a few days, everything got better. So absolutely, it's that's a classic example of how it can make a big difference.
Is the problem we have easy access to too much food and the wrong foods, which damage our brain? You said a food binge, which ultimately any animal came across a fruit tree. You and I came across a fruit tree, and we knew if we didn't eat as much as we can, we would not be able to have enough fat on our body, and we would die. And so binging is just a natural, normal, instinctual drive because of the access to the foods that are, a cupboard or a refrigerator, a cellar, and Uber Eats or Grubhub or whatever it is not natural or normal to the human existence for the first 3.5 million years.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, isn't it? I mean, it's a ubiquitous problem in that it's absolutely everywhere in front of you, this kind of food that is very hyper palatable, designed for that bliss point, to make you want to eat more. That's what it's designed for. And it's really effective. There's even slogans. We've got one in the UK. There's a slogan, once you pop, you can't stop. They even market it because of that. So, yeah, absolutely. We would be driven by cues in the brain, symptoms, all sorts of things would cue us to kind of want to consume, more berries and things at certain times of the year to fatten us up. Absolutely. And
is there a purposeful mission by the government's industry in monetization to sell us content ideas that make us actually sick, miserable, and now we're simply being treated with more drugs, doctors, dissections, and it's your DNA genetics, and that's your problem?
Yeah, I think it's a huge. So having worked in the health service, I've seen some of the difficulties in trying to move money across to prevention. It's very difficult to achieve. Personally, I think there's a conflict between governments, big businesses on the food side, and the pharmaceutical industry. That I don't have all the evidence to support that. It just seems to me that, charities like the Public Health Collaboration Charity, where we're trying to really make systemic change and get, food used as a really good tool, we're just not having the political buy-in to make it happen. And I suspect that's partly to do with the influence of business, unfortunately. And that's why, people like yourself are so important for getting word out there, because actually knowledge is power. That knowledge is power for individuals to change their health. And that's really what we're proposing is, I think, what needs to happen at the moment. We do need to be challenging from the top, at the top level too, and hopefully that will make progress. It appears in America you have progress with some changes. So we're hopeful that if we make changes, we may follow.
What can we do to make the changes to ourselves personally, our family, friends, or colleagues, and the community at large around the globe?
That's a big question.
We're asking you to solve the world problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at a personal level, my personal belief is that you need to get your body burning fat optimally. Fat is the fuel. We need to be using that as well as we can. So we need to be training our metabolism to burn it effectively. And that means eating things like fatty meat. I mean, some people will cope without cutting out all plants. Some people will put a bit dairy in. Some people have eggs and fish. But the message is, let's eat the foods that our ancestors thrived on, is my main message to people. Think about, even we don't need to even go back that far. I've got a 99-year-old relative who can remember his dad having stomach problems. And his dad was a butcher, right? But he was eating things as well as meat. And the GP said to him, so this is going back, 70 years maybe, because he was, it'd be more than that, 80 years. He was a boy at the time. And his GP said, just the meat from the butcher shop, just eat the red meat, with fat. And he resolved all his health issues. So we don't have to go far back before we can actually see that advice still being used. So for me, it's that, and then it's about the other things too. It's about getting natural light. It's about moving your body during the day, so you're in the active phase. It's about managing your stress and other things. But at a societal level, we need to start taking action locally. So I run a low carb course locally. It's a real food course. So I've tried to be proactive in that. I actually got a government grant from the Scottish Government to run that. So that's great because that's, they're getting the results back of that, when I do the audits. And also, I'm involved in running a Scottish conference for the PhD charity, so we're trying to get the word out to primary care professionals and lay people. We get a really mixed audience. And I think it's all these things. We have to tackle it at every level. And then we need to lobby the people in power, the politicians, and the civil servants and other people as well.
Is being an example and staying strong in the mission of the Lion a critical part of our lifestyles to share and inspire?
I believe so. Yeah, I definitely believe so. I think if it's like if you go and see a professional who you look at and you don't really feel that they look very well themselves, it's not inspiring, is it? That you think they've got to have the message that's going to change your life. So absolutely, we have to, and actually that can be difficult, right? We've got to prioritize things in life. We've got to prioritize, going to buy the food, cooking the food, going to the gym, but you have to kind of take one step at a time. That's what I often say to my clients is it's one step at a time. Tomorrow, let's agree what you're going to do tomorrow. It might be as simple as putting your shoes on and leaving the front door of the house to go for a walk. You don't need to say I'm going to run a marathon. You just need to say I'm going to get out and walk. And then the next day you go a bit further. So for me, it's about simple changes that you can start activating tomorrow and you build on them as you go. And that makes it more sustainable. If you can, I'm a big believer in thinking about how you generate new habits. You have to break habits too, but generating new habits, is often a case of thinking about, not just what you're going to do, but when you're going to do it, how you attach it to something else in life. Most of us will brush our teeth in the morning or when we've eaten food, so that's the habit that we've ingrained in ourselves. And we know that we do it all the time of day. We know where the toothbrush is. And it's the same with food or lifestyle things, that we just have to, think, right, when am I going to do this? Plan it into your life. Every day after work, I'm going to go and pick up, go to the butchers, whatever it is for you that makes a difference.
We have a question here. What happens if you are under eating a little bit with carnivore?
Okay, well, I think my view on this is it depends on how often this happens and whether you've got how do you know you're in it? I do have clients that I can't resolve their symptoms. I do start looking a bit more at how much they're eating. And occasionally I find that someone's either overeating, undereating, and I will just try and adjust that a bit. So I think it's about adjusting it, but it comes back to how do you feel? Have you got any problems on what you're eating? Because you might not be, if everything's great, that might be what you need to eat. So I'm sure other people on here can view on this, but I think it comes down to that trying to just, my view is that people should start eating the foods that they should be eating and then see how they feel. And usually it self-adjusts. Some people will very, very quickly say, oh, I eat 3 meals a day, I'm just going to go to 2. And some will say, I'm just going to go to 1, because, the whole nutrient sensing thing kicks in, the body adjusts things. So again, this might be someone who thinks they're under eating, but they might not be, because if they're eating 1 meal a day and worrying they're not eating more, but that might be okay for them. So I guess you guys probably, I know Dr. Kiltz was saying you eat 1 meal a day. You probably don't worry about under eating. You probably just eat till you're satisfied, I'm guessing. In general, most of the time we get satiety kind of reflexes.
And when you're carnivore, you minimize and or eliminate plants and you eat less frequently, the power of the mind and the strength to do hard things, like don't eat for 2 weeks, or get off coffee, or get off alcohol, or get off negative ideas and be more positive and be more inspirational. That's one of the byproducts of carnivore that I've realized in my life. It's one of the best things I've ever learned to do is carnivore gave me the strength of a lion. And because I used to be overdrank, coffee too much, a lot of negative thinking, and didn't have the strength that came with carnivore.
And Mansoor says, Dr. Ruff, you look like 53 years old and healthy.
69 3/4, 70 March 12th. And I've never felt better in my life. And when am I going to die? I don't know. Is modern healthcare really good at predicting, or have they given us a fear mongering? You got to get this diagnostic test, and then it leads to therapeutics, and then you worry. And has worry helped us one bit in life?
No.
No.
And I think as humans, we're so good at being caught in the past or the future and forgetting about the present. That is one of the things that I think probably as a species, we're probably the only, we don't know for sure, but we're probably the only species that does it. And we forget to live in the moment and enjoy, the moment that we've got here.
Yeah. And so, do you have any mindset ideas or other non sort of dietary paths in order to help build your healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big believer in positivity generally. So using things to help with that. So, even as simple as, when you wake up in the morning, saying to yourself, it's going to be a great day. And if you don't really believe that, you can say to yourself, I really hope it's going to be a great day. So even simple things like this, even looking in a mirror and saying, hello, amazing, good morning, how are you? It's going to be good. Give yourself a high five. I dance in the kitchen every night when I'm cooking my dinner. Put the music on. Mindfulness. I love mindfulness. Being in nature. Taking the awe of nature. Looking at a tiny insect. This morning, I went for a walk every morning before work. This morning, down my way, the farmer's got a new ram, and the ram's obviously been told that it's really, really friendly. It comes for a cuddle, so I can rub its head every morning. So this sheep I'm in conversation with. So, it's just all good stuff, isn't it? And I live somewhere where it's quite wet and rainy a lot of the time. So, any other little things are great. I saw a red squirrel the other day. So yeah, I think mindset is really important, and it can be hard if you're feeling in a really bad place. So people can struggle with that a bit. When I have severe brain personalization, and if somebody had said to me, you just need to think more positively, I don't think I'd have taken that very well. But I think together as a powerful tool to use that alongside diet and other things, it's really important. Yeah.
One of my favorite books, of course, in Miracles, the Christ-based teachings, which is a big one that I recommend for everyone. It's and basically a faith, but you got to instill in your mind the philosophy of those that have come before us to help us shed our negative thinking. I think mindset is the master set, and you got to read, listen to, watch stories that are going to be inspiring. And the Gospels of all religions and the place of churches for so many people can be a link and inspiration, but you got to get really down into the words and ideas of why it's so important for all of us. And, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? Do you have any favorite books, Moira?
As in, what kind of books?
Any books that have inspired you into positivity and mindset?
I've got loads. Let me have a look, see what I've got. Actually, this is quite an interesting one. It's not so much about mindset, it's just another idea for people to be thinking about, which is a book called The Art of Rest. How do you relax and, let your brain chill out? And some of the things are really, really simple, like having a warm bath, so simple things. Again, she talks about being in nature and things like that. There's some interesting studies done that even, in care homes, people using virtual reality to get closer to nature has a positive effect on mental health. So it's amazing really that, the blue, the green space, all these things. Also social support, having fun with people, having a laugh, playing games. I have a relative who is in his 90s, a different relative, who has always hidden behind the sofa to pounce on the grandchildren, and he just has fun. He's not forgotten the art of play and, the joy of just being a child. And I like to bring that back in, dancing and things like that.
Yeah, we need to get back to our childhood and childlike nature, because we are children of God, and that's where there's such a playful nature, games and celebrations and parties. And as a carnivore, you can enjoy the connection of the people, and maybe eat an oopsie cake or a little bit of Kiltz ice cream with just the cream, the eggs, and the joy of a cold treat can be really helpful.
Dr. Kiltz, the book about glycocalyx is the one that this is referring to.
Well, here's the Course in Miracles. Here's the Christ Release Teachings, and a couple of books.
They were asking about the glycobiology book you held up.
Yep. I get to show them all.
What's the title of that one?
The one is what is this one?
On your right hand. Essentials of glycobiology.
And basically the glycocalyx is like the plants all around the earth. No plants, no life. There's sugars that bind every membrane of our body that create the environment for all life. Without sugars on every cell of our body, our red blood cells, our blood type is not determined by a protein, but determined by a sugar. Our HLA antigen is not determined by a protein, it's determined by a sugar. The glycocalyx is the barcode, it's the transmitter and receiver. It creates the mucopolysaccharide layer. Heparin sulfate, chondroitin sulfate are all sugars. And sugars are critical for the function of the human body. And adipocytes contain sugars. Muscle cells contain sugars, but they also contain fats and proteins and minerals and vitamins. When you eat meat, you eat sugar all day long. The difference is plants contain a cell wall, which is a very, very tight structure of sugars that form the starches. And the shell of a lobster is made of what? Sugar. And so we've misrepresented sugar's function in the sciences, unfortunately. And as the glycocalyx is damaged, cellular function is damaged, the membrane function is damaged. This is where all damage is these. So imagine with all the plants in your environment gone. The winds and the water will erode the soils, but the root systems have and the plant structures above the ground are holding the soil, plus they're communicating with other organisms and plants. The same thing's happening with the glycocalyx. It's communicating with all structures of the body and all other cells, including foreign cells. Was that a simple answer? But if you read my Kiltz Keto Carnivore book, we also talk about the glycocalyx in there.
And it's fair to say, isn't it, the disruption of the glycocalyx is implicated in loads of different health conditions.
I would say every disease is actually a disruption of the glycocalyx, which disrupts the function of a protein.
Yep.
but the protein is functional because of methylation, hydroxylation, glycosylation, and many other post-translational modifications that happen at the speed of light. And so, again, the liver, when the insulin resistance is actually liver damage. As the liver function drops, glucose levels rise. And when glucose levels rise, what else rises? Insulin. Insulin is just trying to do its job. And we are messing it up because glucose is not your energy. Acetyl-CoA from fatty acids is the only energy of your body. That's my story. That I'll bet $1 billion our complicated metabolism is a scientist theoretically describing something so they can get a PhD and potentially a Nobel Peace Prize and get a raise in their salary. Prestige, power, publishing. Money is the devil. Next question.
Deep Sea Otter asks, is coffee considered a healthy?
Well, my view on that is no, it's not. There are a lot of studies out there trying to show it is. I'm not convinced personally.
Well, so has alcohol been shown to be good for us.
Exactly.
Look at driving a car is good for us, healthy. Riding a horse, doing a marathon, flying in an airplane. They're just things we do. Now, what you think about them is a major factor, and how you consume them is a major factor.
It says, the Ozempic is sure making its rounds. Saw Melissa McCarthy change. Nice, but is it really healthy?
It is not. It is not healthy. It is in our modern world. It's like, okay, you want to go to the store, do you walk or take a car or a bus or a train? All right. But GLP-1s, 2s, 3s, 10s are not good or healthy for us. Moira, what is a healthy diet for humans?
Well, I believe it's what we evolved on, mainly fatty meat, maybe occasionally with other stuff like we've talked about, maybe some berries occasionally, a little bit of plant food occasionally. I totally agree on the view of the Ozempic. I mean, I think it's interestingly, if you want to raise your GLP-1, one way to do it is the carnivore or ketogenic diet. It raises GLP-1, so you'll get some of that anyway. So and the biggest problem is that you lose muscle mass as well as that with GLP-1 drugs. That I think they're going to probably be. I wouldn't be surprised if they're banned in 10 years. Let's say that, because there'll be a lot of adverse effects I think that come through, and we're going to end up with more sarcopenia, more frailty in old age, all sorts of things probably.
I went gray in my early 40s, by the way. And I love my hair. I love Dr. Nelson's hair. Is gray hair a sign of sickness? No, it is not. By the way, it's
a sign of wisdom, right?
Wisdom, character. Look at our skin changes, our hair changes. I don't care if you're carnivore, but mindset is the master set. Judge not lest ye be judged, or simply judge with love. You look amazing. I don't care. Does obesity cause disease? Does being drunk cause disease? It doesn't. It's the food and the wine, whiskey, or beer you consume that actually caused all those things. Obesity is not a disease. Is eating fat good or bad for us, Moira?
No, it's good for us.
Good for us. Mightily good for us. Masterfully good for us.
Let's do the giveaway. Well, if there's any other questions that pop up, we can answer those. So this is for a baseball cap.
KMT, join KMT for free. Join and become a life coach on Kiltz Mighty Tribe. And we have paraphernalia. We're working on our Kiltz market space where we can help you find products we think are good for us and important. You get a discount. We get an affiliate pricing on that. And it helps those manufacturing of our products around the globe, every country of the world.
Steve Royer,
all right, well,
doing this week already?
He did. I don't know. This is so weird. Congratulations. You have to email me. I don't control this.
I love white hair. I love gray hair. I love no hair. I love all hair. Love What Is by Byron Katie's another great book to read.
Well, on the point of hair color, you don't really want to dye your hair because that's a toxin as well, isn't it? So just go for the natural shades.
And then if you're judging someone sick and ill because of their hair, that's not the way we're here to live. I am healthy and well
that
for you. We love you.
If you're judging others, you might be suffering what Dr. Zig Ziglar used to say. You're suffering from stinking thinking.
Yes, and our good friend Ben Azadi is out there sharing these wisdoms and words of positivity, and that's what we're here to do. And that's my mission in life: is continue to share wisdom and words of positivity, love, kindness, and generosity.
Today at 3:00, Jenny Middich.
Yeah, Jenny Middich.
I'm going to be there today with you.
Okay,
guys.
awesome. And yeah, awesome. I'll send you the link. Oh, Dr. Kiltz can play guitar.
90 Day in the Universe. What do I do with my picket? Only one thing to me is a carnivore. I see life is good and great. It be chat with Moira, Nelson, and Alia. It be and join Kiltz's Mighty Tribe. Always see. All right. Is it? No. Oh, we got 2 minutes. What are the questions for Moira?
There happens to be none.
You didn't speak much on the schizophrenia case that you were involved with. Maybe you can quickly tell us about it.
Yeah, I published that case study because I felt it was an important message of hope for people, because this was a gentleman who had actually been homeless and he'd been sectioned in hospital several times. He had discovered the ketogenic diet a few years before in a self-help book, not in a diet book. It was it was an extra strategy in this book. And he dabbled in it, but he was doing lots of cheat days and things, and his mental health got worse in the cheat days. And then he wanted to try the diet more properly. When he came out of hospital, he contacted me and he wanted to do a carnivore diet, which sounded like a great way for him to go. Also very simple, At times he was living in a hotel room because he was homeless still. He only had a microwave, a plate and a spoon. And he just did it using a very simple ground beef, high-fat ground beef and beef tallow. And he put his schizophrenia into remission. And I tracked him I've been in contact with him for well over a year now. He's still in remission and he's now volunteering mental health services.
Well, are we in remission from poison ivy? No. All of our problems are not a disease, but an exposure to a poison that damages us. And we are not in remission. We are simply healed and not poisoned any longer. I'm throwing that out there as it's simplicity. It's like, again, fermentation. You're alcoholic all your life. Is an alcoholic truly an alcoholic? No. They've been poisoned by propaganda that's killing our brothers and sisters. Is it as simple as that?
Where can we find you, Moira?
Sorry, say that again.
Where can we find you?
Yeah, so it's Moira Newiss. I'm the only Moira Newiss in the world, so that's quite lucky for me. So you can find me easily using my name on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also my website is my name, so it's www.moiranewis.co.uk. I've got some resources on there that people might like to take a look at. And yeah, I welcome anyone to come follow me or ask any questions.
Thank you.
When are we going to do a carnivore conversation? Oh, yeah.
Most likely in March.
Okay, let's get them all scheduled. These are very important. What Moira's sharing is I was in New York City, and there are plenty of homeless people, and ultimately, I was talking to a friend whose mother was an alcoholic, a drug addict, and father, and all these problems we're all having in the world. It is not it's not your fault ultimately, but you have the power to change it. And our job is to share carnivore concepts around the globe that we can help our brothers and sisters. And what you're doing is magical and masterful, and keep doing it. Let's keep growing and helping our brothers and sisters, ambassadors around the world. That's what we're all here to be, is ambassadors of why carnivore is like amazing, right? Amazing.
We have one last question, and I brought it up.
I asked them to email me so I could give them the information of what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah. Duncan says, hi from Scotland. Great to see people like Moira here.
Oh, it's been great conversation. You know, I like being challenged as well. It's good. You know, I always learn new things. So that's the whole point of things like this, is that we all learn and, you know, increase our own personal knowledge.
Awesome. All right, everybody. See you at 3 p.m. Dr. Nelson, Dr. Kiltz, live with Jenny Middich.
All right.